Three of our top-rated consulting companies, GPS, ROI, and ABS, compiled a list of extraordinary people with extraordinary stories. From that list, we selected the people that we thought were the most inspirational, and you were amongst the very top. So we really wanted.
Unfortunate list.
Well, we wanted to start by just
it.
thanking you and for the opportunity and to take a peek into the mind of an exceptional entrepreneur. To start off with, you're in a very exclusive club. There aren't a lot of billionaires walking around, and a lot of us have found our way into the millionaire club but not into the billionaire club. So my very first question is, what advice would you give millionaires trying to become billionaires?
Well, the first thing, if you set off to be a billionaire, it never quite works that way. You know, just like if you set off, you want to set goals, but you know, to have that much. I mean, look, I'm the first to realize that luck plays a huge part in it. I happen to have a company and a great partner, broadcast.com, that went public at the right time when the internet stock market was going nuts, and so that obviously played a big role in it. But at the same time, we knew we had something special, and I remember one of our early meetings talking to our employees. You know, there might have been 10 of us, and the company was maybe 6 months old, and we said, look, within 5 years, this company's either going to be worth billions or it's going to be worth nothing, bumpkins. And if we work hard, we'll at least give ourselves a shot, because you know, taking the internet and turning it into a broadcast medium was something that was unique and could have a ubiquitous appeal to corporations and consumers alike. And so it was a question of working hard. And I think for somebody aspiring to, you know, take things to the next level or to even surpass their wildest dreams, there's always going to have to be an element of luck. But I think more important is putting yourself in a business that can be ubiquitous, that really doesn't have limits, because otherwise there's always going to be a grind to it. But if the business, if it can't be something that you can visualize every business using or every consumer using, it's going to be tough to scale to be big enough or to have the perceived value to get you to that billionaire club.
Well, what point did you realize that you were going to be exceptional? If you go back to Pennsylvania or Indiana or Dallas, at what point did you kind of have a feeling that things were going to happen?
When I was about 12 years old. And I remember asking my dad to, I wanted new basketball shoes because I was a basketball junkie back then. He's like, well, your shoes work. If you want a new pair of tennis shoes, you have to go out there and get a job. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 12 years old. And it just so happens he was playing poker with his buddies, and one of his buddies was like, well, I got a job for you. I've got these garbage bags that we distribute. You can sell them door to door. I'm like, okay. And it was when I was selling them and realizing that I liked to sell and that I could sell, and that I recognized that selling was about providing a service and creating value for people, that I knew that I would literally back then, I knew that I could always succeed. I mean, I remember I was 16, I think, when I started a stamp company and started going to stamp shows and trade shows and just working a little bit harder than other people and trading up from one stamp to the next. I remember one time I started with a quarter and bought a stamp and left with $50, thinking, hey, if I could do this, I could do anything. And it's not that everything worked. I failed a lot, but I never ever felt like I wouldn't be able to work hard enough to succeed.
Well, you have an extreme passion for the Mavs. Even the casual viewer can see how passionate you are. Do you think that passion transcends into the way you approach business?
Yeah, I think it's the other way around. I think it was the passion I've always had for business and being an entrepreneur that transfers into the Mavs. I've always been passionate. Some people thought, you know, it's more OCD than anything else, which I think is a great trait for an entrepreneur. When I mentioned the stamp business, I would stay up till 3, 4 in the morning, even though I had to get up and go to school, and read Lynn's Stamp News and Scott's Stamp Journals and have them all memorized and use that to give myself an edge. Even when I was in college, I'd be in the library reading business books and just looking for business biographies and just reading all I could about business. When I had Micro Solutions and, you know, I started with no money, I pull all-nighters in front of borrowed computers, teaching myself software and how to program. It's just, I've always just really enjoyed just the competition of business. I think, in the sports business, I'll talk to our players and it'll be like, well, you guys compete for 48 minutes and you practice a couple hours and you work on your game independently a couple hours. But the ultimate sport is business, because you have to compete with everybody. And you have to do it 24/7 by 365 days a year forever. And there's always somebody out there trying to kick your butt. There's always somebody who looks at your business and says, I can do that better. I have a better idea. And you have to compete with that person. And all the while, you have to make your customers happy, your employees happy. It's the competitive side of me that, in any entrepreneur, that I think that has to drive you. And I think that carries over into the Mavericks. I want to win and I want to compete.
Well, when you started Micro Solutions, it was a small company.
Yep.
What advice would you give small business owners?
Love what you do. I think too many people think they have to find the one idea. And there's nothing wrong with failing. I've told a lot of people, it doesn't matter how many times you fail. If you get it right, you're an overnight success. All you got to do is get it right one time, and you're that overnight success. I sold powder milk, and that was a disaster. I had my senior year project at Indiana was opening up a bar that got closed because of a wet T-shirt contest with a 16-year-old. That was a disaster, but that was good because it kept me out of the bar business. I got fired from my first job in the software business because I wanted to close a deal instead of going out and closing a sale. Instead of coming in and sweeping the floor, and so it didn't matter how many times I failed. I just kept on going and going and going. And entrepreneurs need to realize that sometimes it's not the idea, it's not who you know, it's not how much money you have access to. It's really finding something that you really love to do. I had no idea I loved computers and technology, none. I took one class in Indiana in computers and I cheated to get through it. It was Fortran. And then I bought a little PC, a 99 4A from Texas Instruments for $99. Started teaching myself to program and found, 4 hours later, 5 hours later, I would look up and I'd been working this entire time and I loved it. And so that was the difference. When I failed a lot of times, and I didn't know where I'd find my success. And then all of a sudden I started playing with PCs and technology and it just clicked.
I've often wondered, you were talking about your business software,
right,
where you got fired. I often wondered, what they must have thought when they watched you skyrocket into the stratosphere of success.
Oh, I could tell you stories because there was a guy named Michael Humecki that was the president of that company. And long after the store closed, he sent me a letter asking me to invest in one of his companies. And it was a stupid idea. So I had to tell him. So he followed me, and I was kind of grateful. But, that's the way it goes.
Well, from your accomplishments in business and in life, what do you take the most pride in?
After my family, I would say that I was never afraid to fail. And then I loved every minute of it. That's not to say there weren't times where there was a lot of stress. There weren't times when I thought we were going out of business. There weren't times where I was scared out of my mind. There were. But just the juice of just competing. It's you against the world. It's your idea, and can you prove it right? It's you walking into a customer to say, my solution is better than the next guy's, and I'm going to prove it to you. You may not believe in me because I'm 21, or now you may not believe in me because I'm older than everybody and don't think I get the technology, but I'm going to prove it to you that I do understand it. And, I'm proud of the fact that I always put myself in the customer's shoes, and I always worked hard to excel in whatever our companies did. And that's just rewarding.